So, how much money do you actually need to buy a house? Last time we talked a little bit about getting pre approved, then you got to start building your search out. And now you're starting to get to the point where you're looking at your bank account and saying, do I actually have enough money for this? Do I understand when this money is going to be paid and things like that? So, let's go through and talk about the three times in the real estate transaction that money is going to leave your account to pay for things. So, starting at the very onset, when we're searching, obviously that's all free. The only money you're spending at that point is gas to get places, okay? But let's talk about the transaction. So you make an offer on a house, and we'll talk about the offer and all of these things at a later date, but let's just walk through this a little bit. When you make an offer on a house and you get it accepted, the first time that money is going to have to leave your account is for what's called an escrow deposit. Now, an escrow deposit sometimes gets confused with the down payment. So let's break this apart and talk about what it really is. The escrow is sort of a good faith deposit. And that's actually what it's called a lot. It's the good faith deposit. And what that means is that you're going to take some money and you're going to put it down in an escrow bearing account, most of the time with the title company. Sometimes a listing agent holds it, sometimes an attorney holds it. But for the general point, it's an escrow account where you put some money and you put it there at the time of signing the contract. It sits there. And then when you go to close on the property, it's applied to your overall cash to close number at that time. So, how much should you bank on for an escrow deposit? What I generally recommend is somewhere between 2 to 5% of the purchase price of the house is about how much you're going to want to use as your escrow deposit. So let's say you're buying a $300,000 house. I would say maybe $5,000 to $6,000 on the low end, going up, around $10,000 up to that range is probably an appropriate range. You could go higher than that, although it might not be overly necessary. And you can go lower than that, but just know a lot of times a listing agent will say, hey, is there any way you can increase your escrow deposit? So 2 to 5% of the purchase price of the house is generally the range that I find myself in for most of my buyers. Now, that again is a certified check paid right then. So you got to have that money at the time of making the offer. You can't just wait to get that eventually. You got to have that in your bank account. So that's the first thing that gets paid out. Now, the second time that money's going to leave your account is for the home inspection, okay? So the home inspection is an independent, licensed and insured home inspector, and I always make recommendations to my clients for multiple inspectors, and I have one that I'd like to use the most because I think he's the best. And now we go in and we actually inspect this home top to bottom. We'll talk more about the inspection, same thing, in a later video, but for the most part, here's the budget. In the home inspection, I break it into kind of two categories. The three that you're probably going to have no matter the house. And those are a general home inspection, a wood destroying insect inspection or a WDI, and then you also have the radon. So general home inspection, roof, windows, doors, siding, structure, the HVAC, the water heater, all of the condition of the interior, right? He's giving you a full home education, basically, on everything that home has to offer. It's not a pass-fail. He's just saying, here is what the house is today, and here's all the things that are wrong with it, with defects. Here are the things that you need to monitor and maintain as a homeowner, and then here are some things you can improve or upgrade if you want to improve the longevity and the life of a lot of the systems in your home, right? So that gets paid that day, right? That doesn't get paid at closing because the inspector doesn't really care whether you buy this house or not. I mean, of course he cares, but he's just saying, I'm going to do this service for this one day. If you decide not to move forward with the sale, that's not on me to take my money back for the home inspection. You decided not to move forward with the sale because you paid for the home inspection. And so there is a likelihood that if you get the first inspection, you kill that transaction, well, you're going to have to pay the inspector again. That's one of the reasons why when I walk with buyers, I say the same thing when we first walk in a house. I'm not here to tell you what kitchens and bathrooms are. It's my job to look for inspection items, things that might derail the sale, things that might be issues as we get to that point. Now, I'm not an inspector. You're not an inspector. We're not contractors or engineers or anything like that. We're walking these houses for 15 minutes, okay? So you have the escrow deposit that gets paid at the time of signing the contract, 2 to 5% of the purchase price, certified check held with the title company. The home inspector who does all the things that we just talked about there, he gets paid right then and there. As of right now, that general three, the general home inspection, the termite, and the radon report, it's going to be about $550, right? The radon, just as a quick aside, it's a decomposing gas coming from inside of the earth, and it shows up all over the place. However, as homes became more insulated and had basements, that gas was found in slightly higher than normal concentrations. And if if it eclipses what's called a 4.0 limit, and you can read this on a state website or anything like that, if it eclipses that 4.0 parts per million limit, then it's supposed to be remediated. Actually, it should be remediated by a radon mitigation system that helps pull that up and out of the area. So we leave a little canister for 3 days, send it to the lab, check the results, and that's how they get the results. So that's the radon test. So those are about $550 for that general 3 parts of the home inspection. However, I recommend to buyers to budget almost $1,000 for home inspections, because what if we get in and we see evidence of knob and tube electric? Well, you're going to want to have a separate knob and tube home inspection to uncover how much is knob and tube. Is it all over the house? Is it only in certain sections? You also may be in a town where they require you to do what's called a sewer line scope, meaning they have to drop a little camera down a sewer line and take it all the way out to the street to make sure there's no cracks in the cast iron, to make sure that if it was an old kind of, these old kind of canvas ones, that it's not crumpled or anything like that, or it doesn't have significant debris clogging it. Pool inspections, all sorts, structural inspections, there's all sorts of other inspections. And some inspections are a free quote. Other inspections, you do have to pay for them to come out and do these things. So $550 will cover those first 3, but I generally recommend budgeting about $1,000 for inspections for the real estate transaction. The final time, and this is where we're going to sort of end this video, the final time that money is going to leave your account in the real estate transaction is when you actually go to closing. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the down payment and closing costs, which are the 2 numbers that make up your total cash to close that you're going to pay at closing. But we'll cover that in the next video. All you need to know at this point is that you have the escrow check, 2 to 5% at the time of signing the contract, budget about $1,000 for inspections as you go through the process. And then also you're going to get ready for your down payment and closing costs. You'll know what that down payment and closing cost total cash to close number is before you sign the contract, because we always run a numbers scenario with the lender and we say, hey, if we offer this and the taxes are this and we're going to close on this date, and here are any other kind of HOA fees or things that go inside of it, what will be my monthly payment and what will be my total cash to close number? So this isn't going to be a surprise to you when you get to closing and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much higher than I thought. That doesn't happen because we know those numbers going into it. We would never sign the contract unless you were comfortable and understood and were able to afford that final number. So that's how you want to start budgeting for your home purchase. Now, on the next video, we're going to break down the down payment, the different loan types and the down payments that go along with that, as well as what are closing costs. Probably one of the most unknown things from the public when approaching sort of the fees of a real estate transaction. So we'll cover that all on the next video. Talk to you then.